Final late post-game show. I'm your host, Dionys Arvadinos. I'm joined from Spain by Alex Madrid. Alex, hello. How are you? We're getting ready to talk some basketball again.
Hello. Well, after the game we had, I'm quite excited. So I'm great to be here, joining you and talking about this incredible Final Eight.
Yeah, of course. So basically today we're going to talk about the two quarterfinals that took place tonight. So obviously Zaragoza just managed to defeat Tenerife in the Spanish class and advance to the semifinals in what was a very interesting and exciting game to watch. It came down to the wire. Some referee decisions, some huge shots, some free throws, and Zaragoza ended up getting the win. While earlier in the day, AEK beat Nymburk fairly easy, 94-82. They pretty much played all their guys. We're going to talk about that as well. We're going to have Jonas Kunis joining us from OAKA to give all the latest and the news regarding AEK and all the other teams that are going to take place tomorrow in the semifinals. And but first let's start with the game that just ended and Zaragoza advancing to the Final Four. We were talking about Zaragoza as being the underdogs in that game against Tenerife. Our friend Gerard Soler from DAZN thought that Zaragoza was the favorite to win it, and he was right. So Alex,
right, yeah.
What are your first thoughts about the game?
Well, a really tight game that probably was not decided, but an important part of that game occurred during the third quarter because it was the only double digits lead that a team had. It was Zaragoza. I think that quarter pushed them to reach the end of the game with energy, and of course that decision that first of all, maybe it's the fifth fall on Giorgis Elmadini, but I think the refs were too harsh on Chus Vidorreta because he had one take, and the second, I don't think it was right, but this happens. It was a difficult moment. They took the decision. We don't know what Chus Vidorreta was saying, but probably it was key in the game.
Yeah, of course. And obviously, as you mentioned, Sermandini was having a huge game. He had 22 points. He had 8 rebounds. Also, Marcelinho Huertas was also really impactful for Tenerife. He had 13 points and 8 assists. But as we mentioned in our previews, these two, even though they are a spectacular duo to watch, are not always enough for Tenerife. Did that play a role not having the supporting cast that they needed in order to advance to that Final Four? Do you think that that's why maybe Tenerife didn't get the ticket ultimately to the Final Four?
Well, when you have almost 5 players over 30 minutes in a game, it means that probably your squad is not deep enough to face this kind of tournaments. There's a lot of minutes to play. Probably if they get the win and they advance to the next round, you then face AEK, who has a really long and deep bench. So maybe that's I think that Tenerife has to focus for the season. Maybe include some players that can also be important. We know that Dejan Todorovic was injured before the tournament. We know that they are still missing Santi Justa, but I think they need support, especially Sermadini and Huertas.
Yeah, Alex, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the situation of Tenerife reminds me of Hapoel and how they managed to they lost that game, but they are still considered one of the favorites to win next year's competition as well. So I think that that's a fair comparison to make.
Yeah, and if we remember what Soler told us, he said that probably it wasn't their tournament. This wasn't their tournament, but probably the 2020 2021. So let's see. Maybe Chus Vidarreta can get into the rhythm with all the players that came for this season. So let's see. It's early in the season, and probably they can fix this during the year.
Yeah, and obviously we'll also talk about AEK in a few moments. But before we bring in Jonas Kounis, the other point I wanna make is that Zaragoza obviously had the five guys in double digits today. Most of the guys were pretty efficient. All of them ranked in plus in the efficiency rating, and I think that also played a role. While Tenerife had not the support that they needed, especially those two guys that you mentioned in Sermandini and Huertas.
Yeah, and also we saw Trevi Hilnason, who was really efficient from the free throw line. He's not an spectacular player, but he made 7 of 10. He was dominant in the paint. I think also Sermadini suffered in defense when he faced the Iceland men. So I think that they did what Tenerife couldn't do: find other names in the court.
Alex, we're going to bring in Jonas Kounis from OAKA, and we're going to talk about the previous game, but also we're going to talk about the second game with him in just a moment. John, can you hear us? Hi, how are you? John, can you hear us? For some reason, John can't see. John, can you hear me now?
No, I got it.
For some reason, we have some technical difficulties again with the connection in OAKA. We'll keep trying, and we'll bring him on again. But Alex, what I wanted to ask you was from that game. You obviously mentioned Tryggvi Hlinason, and I think that he had a real impact to the game because he replaced Jason Thompson, and he had a very important 23 minutes he stayed on the court. He had 11 points. He was 7 of 10 from the free throw line, as you mentioned. He also grabbed 7 rebounds. I think he was key in protecting the paint for Zaragoza. Let's try and bring on Jonas Kounis once again. See if this time he can hear us. John, can you hear me now? Hi.
Hello from OAKA. Yes, I can hear you this time.
How are you? How did you enjoy watching these two games?
Second round of games, equally and even more interesting than the first games, especially the match between the two Spanish sides. They met each other. I don't know if you mentioned it 2 weeks ago. It was the other way. It went the other way in overtime. It's two teams that knew each other. It looked like they knew each other despite so early in the season. And Zaragoza qualified for the next round ultimately.
Yeah, John, I wanna ask you your thoughts about the first game and especially about Ike's performance because pretty much the coach Elias Papatheodorou pretty much rested some key players for tomorrow. They had the game in control from the third quarter. No player played more than 25 minutes in that game. Do you think that could play a role? First of all, how did you view that game? And we're going to get into the players in the minutes.
The ex-coach Elias Papatheodorou balanced the team. The way the game went, it helped him also. The main aspect, the main view on AEK going into this tournament was the deep roster, and they signed Tyrese Rice for the tournament, especially, and it gave them one more player. It's weird. It's like unbelievable to watch. Like Keith Lampard coming out and Tyrese Rice coming in. It's a very high level duo that most people want to sit together, but they didn't actually get together to the final minutes tonight.
Yeah.
And these kind of tournaments in such a short time, having a deep roster, a deep squad, a deep rotation, of course, it's going to be key. And I think they have an advantage over every other team that started the tournament, either eliminated or not.
Dionysus, okay. Johnny, I think, or well, if I take a look to the stats, we can see that Ike shot 36 2-pointers and 37 3-pointers. Don't you think that maybe this early in the season, confident of your game to 3-point shooting is kind of dangerous well, as I said, this early in the season?
Yes, they shot threes. I don't think it's going to be that way moving forward in this tournament. I think in tighter, possibly tighter games, they're going to move into the paint more often. But still, they have the perimeter to shoot threes. They have a lot of options in general, and that's what the deep roster can do. And okay, they have the home court also. It seems to be, especially after today's performance, it seems to be their tournament to lose. As risky as that can sound, coming from with 2 games left to win. So AEK has the wide variety of players, of different players that could go and win these games and get the second trophy, basically trophy for their side.
John, Ike made 13 3-pointers tonight, and this is the 14th out of the 16th game in which they have made more than 10 threes, and they have actually won these games. Do you think that this stat will play a role in tomorrow's game against Zaragoza?
The way I saw the game is that they were probably forced to shoot some threes in some key parts, and when they started falling in the third quarter, they made they didn't actually blow out the game, but they got the difference to safety and work out the fourth quarter to secure the W. And yes, as you mentioned earlier, and they got the rest players. They have a lot of options to go forward. They have the disadvantage compared to the 2 teams that played yesterday that they are going straight into the semifinals. But the same goes for Zaragoza that probably had a tougher game to handle, and it finished like 2 or 3 hours later.
Yeah.
So okay, they're going into tomorrow's match, and one team will advance to the final. It's going to be very interesting to watch for sure.
From my point of view, it seems that, well, we all know that AEK has a really deep roster, but probably their scorers are focused on 2 guys, Tyrese Rice and Kate Lanford. Don't you feel that probably that can be an issue is if Ocampo focus their defense on those 2 guys?
Yes, they probably are going to focus the defense on those 2 guys, and they probably Ike's going to expect it. The tricky part is if they're able to combine them in some key parts and maybe disrupt the defensive plans on the other side. It's always a chess game, and Elias Papatheodorou, the advantage he has, and he's probably going to try to have it on his side, is what you said exactly, that he could turn out various lineups and respond to almost anything Zaragoza can present challenging.
John, since Ike is one of the most experienced and at the same time oldest in age teams in the competition, do you think that the fact that that no player played more than 25 minutes and that Coach Elias Papatheodorou had a really nice way of implementing all guys in that game will play a role tomorrow, especially since it's less than 24 hours away and 8 of the team's players are over 30 years old?
Yes, it was important to keep them fresh and for the tomorrow's game. It wasn't as easy as the scoreline looked the game against Nybrook. and Nürburgring put up a fight. But in those key moments, the players that were on the court kept them in front and kept them going into the semifinal. About tomorrow's game, I expect that maybe more pressure is going to be put on the star players like Tyrese Rice and Keith Langford, because the Zaragoza is more than capable to provide challenges for both scorers, and this is it's going to come up to that, like which team is going to prevail and move on to Sunday's final. And I just believe that AEK looks like the favorite going into this game.
Mhm. Before you go, let me ask John, what were the player reactions and how did they view that win? Because obviously in the post game conferences and the things that they said, it seems that they are focused on the bigger goal, which is to win the championship and not only qualify to the semifinals.
I believe what I gained out of the quotes after the game, because of the health restrictions here, we can't actually attend the press conference or the mixed zone, and they were happy enough to get one game in, win the game, and get some stress out, because if you're considered the favorite and lose the first game, it would be tough to recover from that going into the season, even though it's so early in the season. And they what Keith Langford said in particular was that they could focus more on basketball now,
Mhm.
and going into the second game instead of focusing on mental preparation. That was probably their priority going into this first match. So he expects a more complete performance tomorrow, and we'll see what they can deliver.
Mhm. Alex, do you have anything to ask John?
No, I was going to ask the same question you did in the last one, so I'm done.
Okay, and one last question for me before we let you go. We'll obviously get into that with Alex a bit later, but we were also talking off air the fact that three of the underdogs, let's say, won the quarterfinals and advanced to the semifinals, while like the heavy favorite of the competition managed to fairly easily, let's say, beat Nimburg and advance to the semifinals. Do you think that since AEK is currently the heavy favorite to win it all, is it championship or bust for them? Because they've pretty much designed the team for that Basketball Champions League tournament.
Yes, it looks like the main obstacles are out, but the main obstacles were eliminated by teams. So somebody could say that these teams were better. So
Yeah.
at this stage of the season, at least, AEK was the favorite going into this tournament, and the way the underdogs prevailed in the three out of the four quarterfinals, by my opinion, shows that the tournament was unpredictable anyway, because the teams are still early in their preparations. They are not ready, fully ready at least. They still have to put in games, but these games were appointed because they would determine the last season champion and everything. Ike also has the home court advantage, as we previewed the tournament before it started, and it looks like an even stronger favorite at this moment. But I've seen the competition so far, and any result in any of the semifinals coming up tomorrow wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah.
Any possible result wouldn't surprise me at all, because I expect anything to happen in these games, even against AEK or Dijon and Burgos, that will fill out one of those two teams will advance to the final.
Yeah, we briefly mentioned that yesterday about Dijon and San Pablo Burgos and how exciting and close that game will be. But I have a feeling that the Zaragoza and AEK game will be also very interesting to watch, given the fact that Zaragoza has played some official games in the Spanish league already, while AEK hasn't played an official game in the Greek league besides the Super Cup. John, I don't think if you don't have anything else to add, we're gonna go ahead and wish you a good night, and yeah, and we'll see you tomorrow, I guess.
Okay, bye. We'll see you
See
tomorrow.
you, John.
Bye, Alex.
So, Alex, I have the same question for you because obviously we had that discussion off air. Basically, all the favorites seem to have been eliminated so far, besides Ike. Do you feel that it will be a disappointing result, a failure, let's call it, if Ike don't end up winning tomorrow or even don't end up winning the trophy?
Well, first of all, I have to say that probably AEK matchup is more difficult. Well, on paper, San Pablo Burgos is favorite against Dijon, but probably
Yeah.
Zaragoza and AEK are more similar teams, in terms of quality. So I wouldn't feel like it's disappointed. You are playing against an ACB team and a team that finished third last season in the Spanish league. So you have to take that and say, okay, if we lose, won't be disappointed. It is true that you are playing at home and you have to go for the win, but Zaragoza is a great team and they shouldn't be concerned about it.
I think the reason I'm asking, first of all, it's because of the thing I mentioned earlier that more the favorites, at least on paper, starting the tournament, have already been eliminated. But at the same time, the thing I also mentioned to John, the fact that AEK seems to have managed to put in that roster together in order for them to lift the trophy. Like, for example, Tyrese Rice's contract expires after the end of the tournament. So I think that they've brought some key players, some more experienced guys that are gonna help in these type of games, and I think that showed tonight.
It is true that probably AEK is the team that more focused their contracts in this tournament, but I also feel that most of the teams oriented their teams to this tournament in a way or another. So yeah, that's true. And probably they have the best players on paper because we are talking about great scorers in Europe who has a lot of East Coast history. And as I mentioned, like Tyrese Rice and Kendall Info are fan favorites, not only in Athens right now, but probably in entire Europe. So let's see. It will go in their favor, of course, because they have the experience to manage these semifinals. Probably in other teams they don't have players with this experience, so it's important for Ike, but also a thing to manage because, as I also said, Zaragoza will focus their defense on them.
Yeah, I think I played if not the perfect game, near perfect. They obviously could have scored 100 points. They were really close. They had 25 assists, if I'm not mistaken. I think pretty much that they had a perfect game. While at the same time, what's really, really important for me is the fact that they rested some key guys. If you go ahead and see the minutes that the key players played, like for example, Keith Langford was the only guy that played near 25 minutes. Tyrese Rice played 18 minutes. Jonas Matsioulis played only 11 minutes. Nikos Gigas played 18 minutes. So I think that these will play a role because they are playing tomorrow. They are playing in less than 24 hours. While Zaragoza, as you mentioned earlier, the the players that you expect a lot from them did in fact have a huge impact on the game, but at the same time they played a lot and they might be tired, and also that 3 hour difference could play a role. I know it's only 3 hours, but these type of small things can also affect the game, especially in elimination tournaments.
Well, resting in a short tournament, it's a key. So that's one of the reasons I think San Pablo Burgos' chances increased because they had an easy game. They have 1 day rest, probably more. Well, they will also Dijon, but San Pablo Burgos could rest their players during the game, and also the team that comes from that matchup between San Pablo Burgos and Dijon will have 1 more day of rest than the others. So it will play a role for sure, but we will see how much will affect. Probably in this semifinal against Zaragoza, it would be key. But we also saw some players from Zaragoza that didn't play their best game. I can say probably DJ Sealy didn't play very well. It's true that he played almost 30 minutes, but he wasn't really. He didn't have his night in the suit, so I don't know. Dylan Enix, for example, is another player that didn't show his entire level. So probably, if you are rested, it's much better. But you also have to know that the other players that didn't perform well during the quarterfinal, now they will have to give a step up.
So that's obviously the second semi-final that's going to take place tomorrow at 9:30 local time. What about the first semi-final between Dijon and San Pablo Burgos? What do you expect from that game?
Well, as I said before, we talk a little bit about it. Probably on paper, Real San Pablo Burgos is favorite, but you can trust Dijon right now. It seems that Tour Telecom had an easy quarterfinal, and they were beaten by a great team that knew how to, after a bad start, come back to the game and perform in a really good way. They were close to come back, the Turkish team, and they managed to take control in the last minutes. So they have that experience, and it's gonna be important. I think that the Spanish team is favorite, but you can trust Dijon.
That was going to be my next question. Do you feel that because they are the favorites, because San Pablo Burgos, at least on paper, and especially since last night's performance, blowing out Hapoel by 27 points, do you feel that this could put pressure on their shoulders going into that game? Because so far they've been the so-called underdogs.
Well, this is Joan Peñarroya's job right now. He has to tell his guys, this is not done. We are not in the final yet. This team show that they can make a strong appearance in this semifinal. And as this is Joan Peñarroya's job, he has to calm down his guys and make them be focused from the first minute to the 40.
I think Alex Renfro also mentioned that yesterday in our post-game interview. Basically, that was his main focus. Even though we won a game, we won the quarterfinals, we had a great performance. We don't want to say that that's it. We want to keep pushing further and reach the final. So let's make some predictions. I know, Alex, that your team, the team that you picked to win the trophy, is currently one of the favorite to win it all. The team that you picked is still in the tournament. So you're sticking to your prediction?
Well, you mentioned the 1-day rest, and it's probably important, but I will go with that experience, guys. And I don't want to have mad fans from Burgos in my tweet lane telling me, "Oh, why did you say that we were gonna win the tournament?" So I will give the pressure to Ike.
Yeah. So you're saying Ike, San Pablo Burgos, the final?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think both semifinals are going to be really interesting to watch. So the first one is scheduled at 6:30, while the second one is scheduled at 9:30 tomorrow. And then obviously the final will take place on Sunday. So we're going to go ahead and close tonight's live show. Alex, thank you so much for joining me in another Eurohoops Basketball Champions League post-game show.
Let me say, Dionysius, that congratulations for the 4 teams that will remain in Athens, because there are also 4 teams that will have to go home, and they deserve to be here to complete the week. Let's see who wins it all.
Yeah, of course. So we're gonna be here tomorrow after the second game, after Zaragoza takes on AEK in the second semi-final. Until then, make sure everyone to take care, and we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good night.
Bye.